All right, so it's been a few days. December 16th of this year, 2023, will actually be 2 years. So a couple days since I started this project, but you know life happens. Reminder, what's going on: 87 V10 Silverado, LQ4, 700R4, 208. Just trying to get this thing fired up. Definitely by Monday for sure. Give a little overview of some of the things that you'll notice right off the bat. Fuse box isn't coming through the firewall, and that's because I want to make sure everything is hooked into it before I permanently install it. I say permanently, but you know, things change. I just ran all the sub harnesses to it through the firewall, so that way I can do all my testing, primary fuel pump, actually get the engine to fire up on it and check everything. There's still a few things I have to pin, such as I can't see it very well through here, but somewhere hiding way deep down there, right down there, is the factory oil sending unit. Still got to pin that back in for the dash. And we'll do an overview of some of the wiring and what all has actually been done. Been walking on my own for about 3 days now, not using crutches. Motorcycle accident, titanium rod in my leg and plates and screws in my left arm, and it's life. I'm trying to get through it. So for the wiring, I know it looks like shambles, but it was way worse before because I literally took everything out. I'll show you everything that was discarded. So currently the way everything's wired up, I repinned everything back into the factory harness just the way it would be. So switching power for the factory TBI computer, and then all-time hot for the factory TBI computer. Now they go to terminator. Switching power still switching power, and all-time hot is still all-time hot. Yes, I know the terminator has its own fuse in line with it, but I want everything to be here. A little double protection never hurt anybody. Everything's going to be fine. Someone might hit me on that, but it is what it is. With that being said, we should have some signs of life really quick. We will click it, and that was a good sign. Let's see what happens next. There we go. So obviously I haven't done anything. I'm waiting for my laptop to charge so I can load the tune file that I already started. Engine turns over. Notice the screen didn't change until I turned the ignition off. That's good. There was no flicker, so I don't have any voltage drops. Battery's still okay. It was at 12.7 volts this morning. Haven't charged it in a while, so that's a good sign. We'll run over some of the wiring. Inside this relay box control my high and low beams, as well as both fuel pumps separately. Instead of all the power running through the factory switch inside the dash for left and right tank, it's only going to be switching power. Terminator from Holley, it controls the fuel injectors as well as a fuel pump up to 15 amps. The instructions will tell you that. It's not that I don't trust it, it's just I don't want to run into any issues, and I definitely don't want to start my fuel injectors for any power. So what I did was I took the green wire that is supposed to power the fuel pump, and that is switching power. It goes into the relay box, comes out of the relay box, and it only goes to this switch that's in the dash that goes to each tank. Whenever you flip that tank switch, it goes to its appropriate relay for that tank. Pin 87 alpha, these are 5-pin relays, is a ground. That way the fuel selector valve can have its ground and shift to the tank that's on service. Pretty easy. The same way factory did it. The same way you can easily do power window upgrades with relays instead of all the power going to the switches, and your switches only control relay power, and you don't have burnt contacts. Speaking of burnt contacts, I had to change the ignition switch just a little bit. I got in there and there were a couple contacts that were pretty messed up because it's the original switch from 1987, so it's seen a couple cycles. The starting contact was actually really bad. There was carbon all over it. It was messed up pretty bad. So now it only controls switching power to a relay that sends power to the starter solenoid. Makes life so much easier. And then you don't take the steering column down because you send all that power through, or someone who doesn't really understand how to start an older vehicle only clicks it for a quick second, or it doesn't hold the ignition key all the way over, you know. And then you got carbon building up and arcing and all that stuff, and you don't see it because it happens inside of a closed box. So along with everything else, we got our transcooler mounted down there. Haven't wired it in yet, but that's fine. 6AN lines running all the way back to the transcooler, or running back to the cooler. Has a remote fan on it. It's a Durrell, and fans are off of the radiator because I haven't put them back on yet, but the wiring's all ready for it. Today the ultimate goal is try and fire it up. I just put 5 gallons of marine fuel, or you know, those that grew up in a different time, 90s fuel in the fuel tank, and we'll see how it goes. I'll bring it back once the laptop's charged, unload the tune file, prime the system with the fuel pressure regulator back completely out, because if you have a leak there with no real pressure on the system, well, it's best to find it there than to find it under 60 pounds of pressure. So I haven't plumbed in or wired in my fuel pressure sensor yet, and that is because it's hard to find the connectors to make your own harness. Everybody has one for a TPS, but they're only like a couple inches long, and it doesn't help me out when I need it to come all the way over here. This harness is not for this engine. Originally from Holley, this is the harness for the Gen 4 engine. So the crank pin, the crank position sensor, and the cam position sensor are different. The cam position sensor came all the way up here, but I rerouted it through the harness, and now it plugs in where it should. This is out of an 03 Yukon Denali. Other things I gotta do is TV cable, very important. I gotta figure that out. Got a lot of money into this transmission and the parts inside of it. Do not want to burn those clutches up anytime soon. So I gotta figure this out, and obviously, as you can see, this water neck may become an issue. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do about that, because that's a brand new AC Delco pump, and I don't want to put another brand new pump on here. But if it has to happen, it has to happen. Along with the other wiring, Vintage Air is on board. By that I mean I spent all the money to get a Vintage Air kit. Haven't finished all the plumbing, but the internal unit is inside, and it is wired back into just like factory. So we'll bring an update whenever we get this thing fired up.